Welcome to this week's Harmonic Pulse, and the topic I'm bringing forward this week is on being ridiculous. And I've heard that many times in my life, you know, oh, don't be ridiculous, or well, that's absurd. Maybe even told, well, who do you think you are? And I have in the past also been called a bit of a live wire for some of the crazy ideas that I've come up with. And, what that tends to do is dim the light of our original thought, of our unique soul expression. And of course, if we believe those words, then we tend to shut down. We start shutting down and we stop sharing our ridiculous ideas. And yet, I'm reminded that some of the most revolutionary ideas in history began with what was called absurdity. You may remember even Einstein, one of my favorite quotes of his, one of his lines was, if at first an idea is not absurd, then there's no hope for it. And really, that has stayed with me because the truth is, I don't live by the rules of how we are taught to kind of be and do. I don't tend to follow society's guidelines for creating success and logically or strategically planning our way through, or even, doing what's maybe considered the sensible way. I follow the guidance of my heart, aligned with my higher mind and source intelligence, source wisdom. And sometimes that can look ridiculous, but really it's not. It's radiant and it's kind of rebellious in the most beautiful way. And it's a way that I call the Edenic way. Because when I speak something new into existence, when I come up with a new idea or a new way of perceiving the world or seeing the world, it may not make immediate sense. And, that doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. It simply means that it's ahead of its time. And if you've tuned in here, if you checking out my channel, then I imagine that you are also probably ahead of your time. And what tends to happen when we have that idea and it doesn't immediately make sense, sometimes our logical mind will get in the way and we want it to, well, why am I doing this? We want it to make sense before we take that first step. We want to know all the answers. We want to be reassured that, oh, if I do this, then this is going to be the outcome and it's going to be the desired outcome that I want. You get the gist, those kind of things. And actually, though that kind of thinking stops us from taking that first step. And I can share now that some of the ideas I've been guided to follow through on, and even though I might have thought that I was heading in one direction, actually it's taken me in a completely different direction, one that I could never have logically thought my way through, and one that perhaps was even more of a wow or an aha than I originally expected. And so that kind of brings me to the deeper message that I want to share today. And that is that really to return to Eden, to live our heaven on earth as sovereign beings, we must become daring. We must dare to express the parts of us that don't fit the mold. And for many of us, that might be, softness, vulnerability, because we've been taught that being sovereign means that we have to be really loud, we have to be really visible, in your face literally, and and assertive. And to some extent we want to be assertive, but that's kind of false sovereignty, I would say. It's really built on that distortion of performance, performing to get attention, to be validated, and to maybe prove our worth. And it's kind of behind the idea that to be powerful means I have to be forceful. And true sovereignty is actually something entirely different. True sovereignty is calm. It's soft, it's kind, and it's rooted in presence. And because I embody that frequency, I know that I may be overlooked at times. I don't push and force my way through. I don't shout to be heard. I offer and I invite. And, just like nature, there's there's a gentle, generous approach, and also a fierceness when I really feel that that's needed. And so to walk the Edenic path is to truly embody your true nature without apology. It's like knowing that there's a season for everything and to allow those seasons to kind of move through you. Some days you're quiet. Some days you're a bit more wild and wacky. Some days are filled with joy. And some days maybe you're in a state of quiet grief. And all of this is sacred. So if your truth feels maybe too strange, too soft, too wild and weird, or too ridiculous for the world, then maybe that's a sign that you're finally becoming real. And so I want to share this week's resonance note, and that is that true sovereignty doesn't shout. It really sings like a songbird just singing its morning song through the trees. It doesn't make demands, it simply invites. And because of that, it's not always understood because it doesn't seek to be given permission to exist. It simply is. So, if you're on this awakening path and something in you recognizes the truth that I carry, then I'd really love to walk beside you. And you can explore some of my offerings on my website, which is theconsciouscreationcoach.com, or simply show up here each week because I'm just really happy to know that you're here. And remember, we don't need to explain our knowing or our guidance or these ideas that we're being invited to follow through. That was a big one for me. I felt like I kind of had to over explain myself. But we don't. We just have to accept that this is what we're being guided to do and to take those steps. And we also don't need to prove our worth and value. Again, that was a big one for me. Feeling like I needed to have that validation from another person to know that it's okay, that what I'm doing is is all right or is going to be received. And knowing that I don't know when my messages might be received, and then that's okay, right? It's really about getting the message. So today I've showed up. The message was I wanted to talk about being ridiculous and simply sharing it for the joy of being able to share it. And that is where we really get to return to our true essence and just being who we are. So I'd love to know if this resonated with you. Drop me a comment and join me next week on the Harmonic Pulse.